What's going on? Call the police. Tell them I shot him 6 times. Is this some kind of joke? I've already been trick-or-treated to death tonight. You don't know what death is. I'm John Renton with the retro review of Halloween 2 from 1981, which is a sequel to, actually, you know what? This fact is way too mind-blowing. You all gotta sit down, you gotta level your breath, level your heart rate, because when I tell you this, your mind's gonna split in two. You're gonna think down is up is down, left is right, right is left, B is A is B, and select is start. If you understand that, I absolutely love you guys. But is the sequel to Halloween from 1978. I know, one of the most iconic slashers of all time. Halloween 2 being a sequel to a movie called Halloween. Oh, math, baby. It's not quite Steiner math because there's a 33 1/3% chance of this movie possibly being good, but it's still not as good as the 66 2/3% chance and the 141 2/3% chance of winning at sacrifice. My God, what was Scott Steiner on? If you're a non-wrestling fan, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But this was directed by Rick Rosenthal, who did American Dreamer, various episodes of TV, The Birds, Two Lands End, and Halloween Resurrection. Yeah, the sequel that pretty much practically put the series on ice for a number of years. I'm not saying that was his fault. I blame Busta Rhymes for trying to do martial arts with Michael Myers and the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis said, no, I don't want anything to do with this. Please kill me off in the beginning. Sorry if that's a spoiler. The movie's been out for 20 years and you haven't missed shit. But this continues the night that he came home. He being the Shape, but not played by Nick Castle this time, played by a man called Dick Warlock. Dick Warlock. Dick Warlock. I feel so bad for his school days. I can only imagine how much fun was made of him. But you know what? He got to play the Shape in this. He got to shape his dick in the form of a warlock. Okay, that's enough making fun of a man called Dick Warlock. I feel so bad for making fun of a man called Dick Warlock. But yes, nevertheless, this is a sequel that takes place immediately. Like, you don't even have enough time to order a goddamn pizza late at night on Halloween night, because the events of the first one, aka one of the greatest slasher movies of all time, where Michael Myers was shot, fell off of a balcony, shot 6 times, and then Donald Pleasance is Dr. Loomis. He's freaking out because he's like, oh my God, he's not human, he's not human. He's touching the grass. See, he does what other fans should do when they get too wrapped up in their fandoms. He actually decides to go out there and touch grass, as the kids say. But there's blood on the grass. And then he tells that guy, call the police, shot him 6 times. You don't know what death is. And he goes off. So Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode is being taken to the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, which is not a local medical facility because it's not for a torn shoulder and anal bleeding. What? Wow. So yeah, since it's the same night, basically, they just have to throw a bunch of stuff in, like the first 5 minutes of this movie roughly taking place, or being the first, or being the end of the first movie. And from there, we basically have Michael Myers somehow seemingly surviving 6 gunshots and continuing his murderous rampage eventually. He does kill one lady after getting a steak knife from an old person's house. And it turns out that this girl was Annie. And, well, the sheriff, it's his daughter. And now we know that Annie isn't okay. She isn't okay. You're not okay, Annie. But Donald Pleasance, he is bound, determined to find Michael Myers. Also, it was funny, at one point, there was this this guy wandering around in Michael Myers' mask, which was a William Shatner mask with goofy hair. It was absolutely hilarious. And he gets hit by a cop and burned alive. And they think it's him. It's actually not him. Of course it's not him. 1, he's too short, and 2, the hair didn't goddamn match at all. This does have Jeffrey Kramer, I barely know her. Charlie Cyphers, Lance Guest. How can you have a guest star in a movie? You have the man with the last name of Guest. Pamela Susan Shoop, Shoop-ba-doop, she gets her tits a shoop-ba-doop. And Hunter Von Leer, who plays a guy named Gary Hunt. Hunt. Fucking love that last name, because it's as close as I can say, or get to saying one of my favorite words without getting in trouble on social media. So, I'm a big fan of the Halloween movies, as you can tell, even the bad ones. I mean, hell, you take a look at all this. These are all that I have. First Halloween, obviously. And then, see, Halloween H2O wasn't that bad. Halloween Curse of Michael Myers, I believe, was the last one that had Donald Pleasance in it. And then the 2018 Halloween. No absence of Halloween Kills on Blu-ray. One, it is on the cock, so I could just watch it anytime I want, but I'm not going to because Halloween Kills wasn't all that good. And I'm reviewing this before Halloween Ends comes out in just a couple weeks. I will admit that this movie is not necessarily that bad. The continuation of being on the same night is unique, especially since this was 3 years after the fact. Had they thought that the first movie was going to be successful, they probably would have hot-shotted it and tried to film it in 1979 and have it churned out. But John Carpenter wanted to take his time. And also he had to be brought in to do other shots because the studio wasn't happy with Rosenthal's vision, which is unfair to Rick Rosenthal. He wanted to try to go for more subtlety, have deaths, but not have it where it's over-the-top gore. And then there were over-the-top gore shots later that were added because Friday the 13th and other movies, other slashers were rising up and they wanted to capitalize on more gore. And also the simple fact that this was the movie that mentioned that Laurie is Michael Myers' sister, but she was adopted by the family after Michael had been institutionalized just 2 years after she was born. The thing about a movie like this is, well, the first one did have a bunch of people wandering around. It was more centrally focused on a few characters. This had just a bunch of disposable nurses and paramedics and other people that really didn't matter. The news reports already being out there almost immediately was certainly something. It was a choice. And then there were people giving in the mob mentality, throwing rocks at the old Myers household. And this also featured an egregious amount of footage of Night of the Living Dead, which I believe, shout out to a particular friend of mine, was public domain at the time. So Michael, he kills one person. He kills that girl, Annie. Laurie is stretchered to the hospital. And the search continues. Donald Pleasance is all panicked. This isn't a man. How did Michael manage to get how did Michael manage to just walk despite getting shot 6 times? I mean, granted, it's a slasher movie, but this was about the point where we were testing the limits of being able to take this, because if he's just a man, a determined man, a powerful man, but still a man nonetheless, you have to wonder what exactly the director was thinking, what the studio was thinking. And then then we got the security guard that gets dispatched. In fact, you could argue that Halloween H2O ripped a lot of stuff from a movie like this. And then, we had a nurse played by a Shoop Badoop. Those could have cut glass, by the way. I just want to say there was a hot tub scene at one point, and the hot tub got turned up to like 120 degrees, and she got boiled alive in it. Not realizing before that her boyfriend had been killed seemingly just a few feet away, and maybe I imagine that's where Jose Gonzalez and Carlos Colon got the idea to deal with Bruiser Brody. Boy, that's going to get me in a whole lot of trouble. In fact, maybe this is footage that it was transposed from 1988 and back there. I kid, there's no way to do that. And before that, a paramedic scares this nurse into sleeping with him. Oh, I see. It's okay when a paramedic does that, but when I do it, I'm asked to leave the hospital. The security guard getting the claw hammer to the head actually was kind of funny. And then after the nurse gets boiled to death, Laurie she's put to sleep, to be in a medically induced coma temporarily. But then she's having an allergic reaction to the medicine. Quick, let's find the doctor. Oh no, the doctor's having issues. Meanwhile, Donald Pleasance's Dr. Loomis and the sheriff and people are continuing to look. This one woman, Chalmers, shows up, and she's, "Hi, Super Nintendo Chalmers," says, "The governor has ordered you to go back to Smith's Grove." "I can't go back. I have to take care of this." "Oh, hey, here's this file, by the way, that you never looked at, even though you knew everything about Michael. We're just going to throw this in. Laurie is Michael's sister. He's come back to finish the job." Poor Donald Pleasance. And then we see footage of Myers walking around. Doctor has a needle sticking in his eye. "Oh my God, doctor, what a big needle in your eye that you have. When the needle hits your eye like a big ow." So yeah, then the nurse, nameless people get killed in this. And look, I don't mind the fact that it's centered in the hospital. They kept it cheap enough. But the dumbest line in this movie, though, one paramedic, finds, like, one of the nurses, like one of the surviving nurses. I can't find anyone, as opposed to the person you are currently talking to right now. By the way, the mask looks different because the original one was worn and also was under the bed of the in the home of Deborah Hill, but Deborah Hill was a heavy smoker. Might explain why she only lived to be 54 years old and died in 2005. Hopefully she died before the remake of The Fog came out that butchered what she wrote in 1980. Good God, the remake of The Fog was shit. So anyway, then the nurse is being drained of her blood. A guy slips in the blood because he's intelligent. And Michael has a scalpel instead of a butcher knife. He couldn't find anything bigger and jams the one surviving nurse with a scalpel and lifts her up somehow. Scalpel, oh, I'm a terrible surgeon. Then he chases after Lori. And then she somehow gets outside, but can't get away. All the cars have their tires slashed and the engine lines are cut. Michael took all this time to do that. Maybe I'm thinking too much into a movie like this, but it's just kind of amazing how they managed to pull this off. So body of security guards left hanging and other stuff. And okay, like I can believe some of this, but this movie was really starting to go off the rails like Jaws 2. No screamer, at least. Jaws 2 deserves every bit of ridicule for not killing off that stupid screamer girl. And then Loomis is being driven back to Smith's Grove and then threatens the cop driving him with a gun and shoots out the window. So never mind the fact that they're probably all deaf right now. He yells at the cop to take him back. Lori is all panicked because she is outside the hospital, and she gets back in. Dr. Loomis puts her behind him. The cop stupidly gets near Michael Myers' body after he shot about 12 more times. Then he gets scalpeled. They get into the room full of the oxygen tanks, and they decide, hey, here's an idea. Let's just set the whole thing on fire. Lori, get away. Okay. This is after Lori had shot Michael Myers in the eyes a couple times. And he's just bleeding from the eyes. And then Dr. Loomis sets himself on fire, blows himself and Michael up. Michael stumbles out, falls over, and that's it. That's it. That's Halloween 2. I will be reviewing Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, because why the hell not? But, whew. Yeah, unfortunately, the quality of the Halloween movies goes down dramatically. I will talk about why Season of the Witch could have worked had they called it anything other than Halloween. But yeah, this one, it's not bad. It has some decent moments. It doesn't capture the magic of the first one. And also, the characters are even more egregiously stupid. And the film almost feels padded. Almost feels uneven. Almost feels like there's certain things they could have shifted around. Kind of like Halloween Kills. Hopefully Halloween Ends is good. We won't find out for 2 more weeks. Or maybe, if you're watching this after the 14th and you've already seen it, greetings from the past. I hope you enjoyed it. So, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rentlin. I'll see you soon.